morning. I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Inuit, Cree, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. I'd like to introduce the members of the panel this morning, as well as the secretary to the board and the assessor. Sitting with me to my right is Robert Krause, and via Zoom is Kent Seelan. Myself, I'm going to chair today's meeting. My name is Mike Coltruglio. From the assessment department, we have Jason Brown, and the administrative personnel this morning is Zachary Mohan. To the Zoom participants of the hearing, please note you are placed in the waiting room until your property is called upon. When it is your turn, you will be admitted into the meeting. Kindly follow along the City of Winnipeg's Board of Revision YouTube channel for the hearing process. Once the host admits you into the hearing, please close or mute your YouTube player. You will then be permitted to speak with respect to your property once your hearing is concluded. You can leave the meeting. We will be hearing application for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by council and is independent of it and the city administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to Port of King's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony, followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each slide will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all evidence about the application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all applicants have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive board's decisions by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and part of the public record. We'll be hearing items 5 and 6, I believe, today. Mr. Mohan, would you please affirm the assessors and the applicant's testimony?
Of course, Mr. Chair. Mr. Assessor, please state your full name.
Jason Brown.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Mr. Applicant, please state your full name.
Marcelo Navarro.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Mr. Brown, would you like to walk us through your presentation at 961 Sherwin Road, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is file number 24-1700. Roll number is 070102422500, and the civic address is 961 Sherwin Road. We are defending a 2025 assessed value at $8,778,000 today. This is an industrial warehouse built in 1977 with wall heights ranging from 11 to 20. This is actually 2 buildings on this roll number. We have a land area at 198,025 square feet. and a leasable area of 82,463. The land to plan ratio on this property is 2.4. Moving to page 2, there was a post-reference sale on this property dated April 1st, 2024. However, that will be dealt with next cycle. On page 3, I have rent comparables. These rent comparables range from 9,174 square feet up to 35,870 square feet. The average wall heights range from 12 to 42 feet, and the effective year built ranges from 1945 up into 1984. You'll see the net rents are ranging from $7 to $7.95, with most of them falling in between there, in the low to mid sevens. Moving to page 4, we have our income workup for the subject property. We're using an average rent of $7.09. This yields a potential income of $584,569. We reduce that by 4.5% vacancy, 3% expenses, and a shortfall of $4 per square foot. This yields a net operating income of $526,672, and we've capitalized that at 6%. Just to note, this property does suffer from some chronic vacancy. Historically, it has been adjusted. I'll note that at about 17.75 vacancy, it would generate a value very close to the sale price. We have capitalization rates on page 5. The city's using a range from the 20th percentile to the 80th percentile. That range is 5.35% up to 7.3%, with the outside sources located to the right, which justify that range. Moving to page 7, I've supplied a map showing the location of the property. This is right on the boundary of the airport, on the corner of Saskatchewan and Sherwin Road. An aerial view below that showing the two buildings. And I have some street view photographs on page 9, 8 and 9, showing the outsides of the two separate buildings. And then there's some interior shots located on page 10 and 11. Page 12 and 13 show some of the attributes of the property. These were taken from the sales brochure. And then I have the income and expense statements located on the following pages. I'll just note the last page, page 20, shows the rents in place. So the rents in place are at $8 per square foot. That's for the one strip mall. And then we can see the 38,700 square feet are vacant, and that's in the other building. So that generates, or that adds up to about a 48% vacancy. And it has been semi-chronic going back a couple of cycles. So based on that, we're asking for the value at $8,778,000 to be confirmed, and I'm open for questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Navarro, do you have questions?
I do. This assessment was model generated, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and simply stated, you probably wouldn't have had time to make any adjustments to this prior to the scheduling of this appeal, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and you just noted in your presentation that this property, at least a section of it, has been chronically vacant since, I actually looked back into it, since about 2017. That's already about 2 cycles, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and based on that, would you think that there probably would be some cause for adjustment on the vacancy?
I believe that there should be an adjustment on the vacancy.
Okay, those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Seelan, questions?
Do you know why this property is being chronically vacant?
The information I've received is that one of the two buildings has some deferred maintenance. I believe it's namely roofing issues.
I see you have a cap rate of 6%.
That's correct.
Do you think that accurately reflects this issue with it?
I believe that that issue could be resolved or justified in either a vacancy adjustment or a cap rate adjustment.
Thank you. That's all my questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Mr. Crouse, questions at this point?
No.
Thank you. You had mentioned if you had done an adjustment to the vacancy, I believe, was it?
Correct.
And that you would get somewhere close to where the sale price?
Yeah, just below 20% would, using our model parameters and adjusting the vacancy to, it was 19.75%. That would yield a value extremely close to the sale price.
Unfortunately, you did not have time to hammer this out with Mr. Navarro.
That's correct. We did have some discussions, and the sale is post-reference, so we had to
And I appreciate that.
take that into account.
But ultimately, you do freely see that there is a fairly good sized chunk of this building, 38,700 square feet that is vacant and been vacant since 2017, you were saying?
That's what Mr. Navarro said, and yeah, I agree.
All right. Those are my questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Navarro, I'd love to hear from your presentation, please.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. We are looking at 961 Sherwin Road. There are specifically 3 addresses associated with this property, and it is 2 buildings, but effectively 3 civic addresses: 961 Sherwin Road, 965 Sherwin Road, and I believe 975 Sherwin Road. If you look at pages 6, you can see an overall bird's eye view of the site. This is fairly close to the airport. Built in 1977, masonry wall structure. I'll ask you to flip to page 10, please. So effectively, we've gone with some of the rents that are in place, and then we've made adjustments for the vacant spaces. We have an overall rent per square foot of $7.42. That's $613,060 in potential rent, as compared to the $7.08 that the model projected. In terms of vacancy and loss collection, obviously, just by the conversation that we've had, this is where most of the adjustment is coming. So the project essentially has been quite vacant for quite a while, since 2017, from our understanding and review of the income and expenses that are submitted on an annual basis. The review showed that the vacancy went back to about 2017. So then I'll ask you to, I'll just make a quick comment regarding the vacancy and its reasons. So there is one building, that's 961, where, as the assessor mentioned, there is some deferred maintenance, and that was essentially there's a need for a new roof and a proper sprinkler system. And these were 2 items that were essentially needed for this site to be rentable. Now, in addition to this, we also had some feedback from the owner, and there was some additional roof repairs that were needed at 975 also. So not as severe as 961 though. I'll ask you to turn to page 13. So there we have the entire workup, and again, 742, 613, 60. We've assigned 20% vacancy to this. That gives us an effective market of 490,448, a shortfall of $4, management of 1%, and other of 2%. That's an allowance of 80,825, giving us a net operating income of 409,623. We've assigned a capitalization rate of 7% to this site and an income value of $5,851,750. Now, based on the commentary that the assessor had made regarding the adjustments on vacancy, if we adjusted this a little bit lower, we would end up somewhere around $6.5 million, which from our perspective would be just as fair. However, what we have presented in our evidence is $5,851,750. Beyond that, I've just submitted the income and expenses submitted by the client, showing that they have been compliant, and they always have been compliant. So I'm open for questions.
Thank you very much. Questions, Mr. Brown? You're muted, sir.
I have no questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Mr. Prowse, questions?
I have no questions, thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Seeling, questions at this time?
So just to recap, this one of the two buildings requires a new roof totally.
And a sprinkler system.
Okay, and is a sprinkler system in existence within this building?
Not to our knowledge.
Okay, so this has to be in place for renters then?
Yes, it has to be in order for it to be rented.
Do we know the cost of these two items? Do we have any quotations? Has the owner told you anything?
I think when we factored in everything and including the vacancy, the deferred capital, I believe you heard me make a statement that it would come out to about 6.5 million in totality. That's factoring for all of those things. So we have a value slightly lower than that because we went a little bit more aggressive on the cap rate. And that brought us down to about 5.8 million and change. However, if we factored for about a little less vacancy and less aggressive on the cap rate, acknowledging that there is deferred capital for the entire building at 961, again, I'll state that we come out to a value close to 6.5 million.
Thank you. That's all my questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. I'm just curious, Mr. Navarro, why in the world has this owner not undertaken these deficiencies in their building?
I think they are, Mr. Chair, but that would be the new owners. I think the previous owners elected to make the decision to pull the plug on this property or repair it, and I believe they chose to pull the plug on it and sell it, noting that it probably would sell on the marketplace for less simply because of all of the issues with the property. And as I said, the assessor and I have both said that, I've said that based on the adjustments that we looked at in terms of deferred capital, vacancy, all of those things put together, we end up at a value of about 6.5 million. We went slightly lower than that in our evidence, but it should be between those numbers.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that commentary. Any final summation from either gentleman?
No, thank you.
No, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. With that, we can move on to the next properties, or property, I should say. That being 1832A King Edward Street. So, Mr. Brown, could we have your presentation on that particular property, sir?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is file number 24-1737. Roll number is 070924585000. and the civic address is 1832A King Edward Street. We have a 2025 assessed value of $8,391,000 today. Once again, this is an industrial warehouse building. Once again, there's multiple buildings on this roll number. There are 3 of them. They were built between 1977 and 1979 and have a wall height of 21 feet. We have a land area of 209,537 square feet and a leasable area of 73,819 square feet. The land to plan ratio on this building is 2.83. Moving to page 3, I have some rental comparables located in the area. These range from 6,000 square feet up to 15,019 square feet. We have wall heights ranging from 10 to 22 and an effective year built ranging from 1958 up to 1979. All these rents are between $7 and $8 per square foot. And moving to the next page, you can see the rents that the model generated are all within that range as well, with an average of $7.38 per square foot.
7.38, you said?
Correct.
Thank you.
So this yields a potential gross income of $544,420. We've reduced that by 3.5% vacancy, 3% expenses, and a shortfall of $4 per square foot. This yields the net operating income of $499,269, and we've capitalized that at 5.95%, generating the total value of $8,391,000. Once again, we have capitalization rates on page 5. These are ranging from 5.35 at the 20th percentile to 7.3 at the 80th percentile. So the subject cap rate does fall within that range. And then we have the outside sources to the right, justifying that range. Page 7 will show the map view. So once again, this is located close to the airport, near Red River Community College. Showing the aerial view below that, showing the 3 buildings and the orientation. Another aerial view on page 8, and then some street view pictures on page 9 and 10. Page 11, these were taken from a leasing brochure. It shows more street view shots. And then we have a plan, a site plan on page 12. The remaining documents are the income and expense statements provided by the owner. You can see the rents being generated on this are justified by the model rents, or the model rents are justified by these. And based on that, we're asking that the assessment be confirmed at $8,391,000 today. Thank you, and I'm open for questioning.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brown. Mr. Navarro, questions at this point?
I have no questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Mr. Seelan, do you have questions?
No questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Krebs, questions?
No question.
Thank you. I just note that the vacancy on this is at 3.5%. And the model, this is all model driven, correct, Mr. Brown?
That's correct.
Expenses were also model driven.
That's correct.
The cap rate is virtually the same as the last one.
Yeah, the cap rate's about 0.05 different, and the vacancy is about 1% different.
That model is really cutting it thin, aren't they?
They are.
All right. Those are my questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Navarro, I'd love to hear your presentation on this, please.
Okay, Mr. Chair, for the sake of expediency, I'll just ask everyone to turn to page 14. I think the assessor did a very good job of explaining the property, so I don't think I need to go over the physical aspects of the property again. Joe, you can see on page 14 that we've generated a rent per square foot of $7.26. That's $535,721. We have a vacancy of 4%. I'm actually not in dispute of the assessor's 3.5% vacancy in his valuation. We went with a 4% vacancy, and that's based on our study that was submitted along with this evidence and cap rate, industrial cap rate study. However, there is no vacancy in this building, so the 3.5% vacancy is quite fair. So we have a shortfall of $4 per square foot, non-recoverables of 1%, and other structural 2%. The total allowance is $27,242, net operating income of $487,051, and we've used a cap rate of 6%. That gives us an income value of $8,117,510, or $8,118,000 rounded. In the appendix, you'll find that we included some of the pictures of the property. We were actually, these pictures were taken a few years ago. However, we were in this building just a few days ago, actually, and not much has changed. Although, if you can see, if you can turn to page 20, so this warehouse here is now occupied. And what's in there is essentially a supplier for heating and ventilation. So they supply the parts to the people who work in that particular industry. Again, not much has changed in terms of its general condition. So I'm open for questions. Thank you.
Questions, Mr. Brown?
I have no questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Mr. Kraus, questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Mr. Seeland, questions?
No questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. And just to understand a little bit, you're using a 4% vacancy. Is this building or this property having any vacancy issues at this time, Mr. Navarro?
Well, first of all, we have to distinguish between market vacancy and actual vacancy. So the vacancy in the property itself is 0%. However, you know as well as we do that we assign a market vacancy to any property. The reason for it is there's a slight difference between what the assessor has and what we have. And we've assigned a vacancy, basically basement of 4% to the city. So there are some areas where we exceed 4%, and those are observed in other parts of the city. In fact, I think we may have had some properties in this docket that were 4.5% vacancy as the market vacancy. This one has a 3.5% vacancy, slightly lower than what we predict as the basement for the city. However, we're not going to dispute that. I have no issues with the assessor's 3.5% vacancy as a market vacancy.
Fair enough. Both your position as well as the city position on rents are within 8 cents of each other in that respect.
Yep.
Your cap rates are virtually identical. So you're basically looking at a very small rent difference and a very small difference in vacancy is basically what I'm seeing, correct?
Yeah, I would say so. I would say that you probably didn't see too much of a fight from me on this one.
See that. Was there a lack of time to conclude this one as you concluded others on this docket?
So I probably would have taken a different position on the cap rate had I had time to inspect it prior to the deadline. However, it is what it is, and I didn't have the time. But I'm comfortable with what I put in, and I'm sure the assessor's comfortable with what they put in. So,
thank you very much. Those are my questions. Gentlemen, any summation from either?
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'm good, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I believe we've heard everything. So we've heard all items scheduled and this hearing is now adjourned, gentlemen. Thank you very much for your time and your patience.
Thank you very much for your time and have a good day, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you as well and have a good day.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.